To problems of a very different sort now, and China's attempts to engineer a soft landing for its red-hot economy. With a change of leadership imminent, China's policymakers face awkward pressures from both inside and outside the country. What is the outlook and the impact on the region and Australia? Earlier, I spoke with the chief Asia economist for Societe Generale, Glenn Maguire, based in Hong Kong. Glenn Maguire, thank you for joining us.
No problem. Good evening.
Now, your shop had been quite bullish on China for some time, and then last month you changed your outlook to a China bumpy landing. What's driving this?
I think at this stage, if you look at Chinese policymakers, they are juggling a lot of balls in the air at the moment. They have the problem with stabilising a property market. They have local government funding vehicles which have been borrowing from the banks and the shadow banking system, and the exact amount of lending and the quality of that lending is uncertain. They have the enormous pool of domestic liquidity that they created via their own version of quantitative easing, which was to use the banks as fiscal agents to fund infrastructure projects. And then finally, they're attracting hot money inflows as investors speculate on yuan appreciation. So how we view it is the risk of policy error has picked up significantly. And then if we put the overlay of the Japanese earthquake causing a significant disruption to the Asian supply chain and the bilateral trade relationship between China and Japan being so significant, then the risk that one of these balls gets dropped and you do see a problem area evolve in the Chinese economy, it's certainly picked up.
Now, there is talk of further tightening as early as next month. Do you think that will happen?
Look, I think at this stage we will see further tightening, both in terms of an interest rate hike and also probably a further adjustment of the reserve requirement ratio. But it now appears that we are getting closer towards the end of the Chinese tightening cycle. The other point to remember is that 2011 is a transition year. We have the new leadership of the Communist Party coming in. They'll be announced at the Communist Party Congress at the end of this year before being endorsed at the National People's Congress in early 2012. And historically, China has always run relatively lax policy in these transition years, simply because they want to ensure social stability. And what you tend to see in 2006, policy was kept too loose. Tightening had to accelerate in 2007, 2008. We're seeing extremely strong wage gains in China at the moment. Both Beijing and Shanghai have increased wages again by 10%. So we're looking at minimum wages growth of around 15 to 20% across China.
You talk, though, about the shortening of cycles as well, in terms of, I guess, this desire by the leadership to address the political side of things. How is that shortening of policy cycle going to impact on Australia and indeed other countries in the region?
Look, definitely. I think one of the key consequences of this is you're going to see more intra-year volatility in both policy and growth. As soon as there's signs that policy is biting and the economy is starting to cool, policy will be relaxed. As soon as there's signs that the economy is starting to overheat again, policy will be tightened. So I think for economies which are fully engaged with China, like Australia is, that intra-cycle volatility is essentially going to be exported to trading partners. You are going to see demand waxing and waning more frequently. And also I think it will reduce visibility on the medium-term economic outlook. So to that extent, it will be problematic for major trading partners.
Just got a couple of last questions for you. One is about the supply chain. I see Nissan expects its April manufacturing output in China to fall 10%. What sort of knock-on effect could this have on the supply chain and generally in manufacturing towards Japan?
Look, I think at this stage most estimates are probably likely to prove to be underestimates. We've seen some industry figures which suggest auto production will be reduced to 400,000 units. That's a decline of around 50% month on month. Autos are incredibly complicated manufactured goods. There's so many forward linkages and backward linkages through the supply chain, rubber for tyres, glass for windows, etc. It is going to have a profound effect disrupting the Asia supply chain. And what we typically find when there are these disruptions, when inventories become very lean, when waiting times and order backlogs build up, it's inflationary. And I think, this is an added concern for policymakers.
The nuclear industry in China, they were in expansion mode before the crisis. They do need nuclear, don't they?
They definitely do, and their nuclear ambitions were absolutely staggering. There's currently around 27 nukes under construction in China, and the potential supply of nuclear energy looked like it was going to go exponential, with 150 new nuclear reactors planned by 2050. Now, obviously, they've put that on hold for the moment, but I think in the long run, China has no alternative but to pursue nuclear energy, and I think you will see across both China, India, emerging Asia, that nuclear energy ambitions will largely be unchanged by the events that occurred in Japan.
Now, can I ask you about the China currency? On the eve of another G20 meeting, we have a Chinese government economist calling for other reserve currencies to counter the dollar. Is there going to be any progress tomorrow?
Look, I think you may see something relatively conciliatory. There may be a broadening of the currencies included in the IMF's synthetic currency, the SDR, or special drawing rights. That's hardly progress, though. There's no physical market for it. It's not used in transactions. I wouldn't hold your breath waiting for a new reserve currency, and certainly I wouldn't expect it to come from this G20 summit.
Glenn Maguire, thank you very much for joining us from Hong Kong today.
Thank you.